Hi guys, my name is Briana Maldonado and I will be focusing on a case study called The Discontinuance of Smoking. Now this case study can be found in Chapter 5, which is the chapter we actually just read this week that covers the innovation decision process. Smoking cigarettes is very addictive, as probably all of us know, and that's probably why it's still a huge problem today. So the 1960s and previous to that were very different times. Smoking was very common. Basically, everybody smoked. And an example that we see in the text of that is that airlines would actually pass out packs of cigarettes with their after meal coffee. And so people were actually allowed to smoke on airplanes, which is a crazy idea that I could never imagine today. But shortly after this, secondhand smoke was discovered, and its negative effects on the people around the smokers. So not only was smoking detrimental for the health of the smoker, it was detrimental for the health of the people who are around the smoker. And so that is when workplaces and restaurants began prohibiting smoking inside. And so now basically everywhere you go, you have to go outside to smoke. You're not allowed to smoke at your table at a restaurant. You're not allowed to smoke at your desk at work. And so we see in 1995, Las Cruces, which is a new city in New Mexico. This city was one of the first to prohibit smoking in all public places through an ordinance that they implemented. Now, other cities nearby began to adopt the same ordinance. And so, as we can see, the problem here is smoking. Smoking, its negative health risks, secondhand smoke, that's our problem. The innovation here is the ordinance that Las Cruces has created and implemented. And so, through research, obviously, they realize the negative effects of smoking, and they have decided to do something about it. And so they implemented this ordinance. And so we actually see in the text that these ordinances were adopted between a time period of 1995 and 2002. So over 7 years, it began being adopted by other cities near Las Cruces, so other cities in New Mexico. We saw cities in Texas, and they even gave an example where a city, Anchorage, Alaska, adopted this ordinance. And so, I mean, a city across the country. And so the communication channels are not clear. But, I mean, it's easy to think about one, which could be, a resident of another city or state comes to visit Las Cruces. They come to visit a family member and they realize that people aren't smoking in public. They think it's a great idea. So they take it back to where they're from and they adopt this idea. Now, I don't know that's what happened, but it's just an idea of what might have happened. And so we see this was a great ordinance that was being implemented. But there were still people who were against smoking. So some people actually thought it was an imposition on their individual rights. There was a restaurant owner who actually said that, the government can't tell me what to do in my own restaurant on property that I own, which is a valid point, but whatever. And so there were a lot of people who were against the idea. And in the text, they actually give a city in New Mexico that refused to adopt this ordinance. Maybe it didn't fit with their political ideology. Maybe its residents didn't want to stop smoking, but they rejected the idea. And so this is an example of a rejection of the innovation. And so I thought diffusion was a really great example. I thought smoking was a really great example of diffusion, or rather the discontinuance of smoking. It's still a huge problem today, so the discontinuance of smoking still continues today. Um, and so I think smoking overall is a really great example of diffusion. Thank you guys.